prominence recently, so that may well be next focus as well. There is the Trundle ban. Wukong, a champion that should picked, so maybe they're going to focus on towards that one. Final ban coming through is Renekton, so 2 top laners taken away here.
So the question now is, are they going to force Wicked onto Irelia? And if so, SK Gaming may have some form of counter pick to work around that one. Knowing that Trundle was banned, immediately we see the reply of the Renekton. It does leave up the likes of Shyvana, something that Freddy has played, and we're still seeing played more so in North America than EU, but it is a champion that can still do well.
Lulu picked in there. It may be on Nif, you know, and we've seen this a few times already today. It's sometimes locked in as that straight first pick mid laner, but it could be for Nif once again.
So Nif ran it yesterday. It was first pick for Alliance. They immediately followed with Irelia and then Wukong. And Wukong is still up. Sivir is still up. Those champions that we've seen work for Alliance in the past are still available, so they may decide to go that route.
Aatrox was played by Freddy last week. He is being hovered over, and we do see that Kayle locked in.
So with Kayle being locked in, we've seen it in the hands of Countard in the previous game in the mid lane. But we've been talking to a lot of teams and a lot of players over the course of the last week, and SK is one of those teams that has discussed the possibilities of Kayle elsewhere. We may actually be seeing Kayle in a different role, and we'll have to see how the rest of this pick ban plays out to get more accurate.
Oh, we talked about those picks. There is the Wukong. Sivir's going to be 4 tabs as well, so strong picks for Alliance here, I'm feeling already.
So this is the exact, 3, I'm going to say core components of that running mobile composition. You get that Lulu to be able to speed up Wukong, even though she's in the support role potentially. It's still going to be a nice speed up that'll allow Alliance to engage. The question is, who do they put around it? We could see Froggen defaulting to the likes of an Orianna. You get everybody in, pull them together with that shockwave, knock them up with the Wukong. The option's still there for them.
Lucian being locked in for Candy Panda this time around, and Sven Skaren will be on Evelyn. It's a champion I believe he's played before in the LCS. At the moment though, Lucian up against Sivir, that's a big range differential now.
It is difficult, but thanks to Sivir having the Boomerang Blade, she can actually trade fairly evenly with that Lucian. It's going to be able to spell shield some of the damage as well.
This is amazing. Thresh and Annie have got all the way through to this last phase, and Morgana's the one that's being considered.
Now, part of the reason I think that Annie has made it all the way through is I'm not 100% sure where this Kayle's going to be going for SK Gaming. I do have it in my mind that it's going to be a support Kayle for N-rated. If Annie had been locked in earlier, you automatically know that that's going to be a mid lane Kayle. So we've got to see where SK do lock in that final pick. And like you said, against hard engages, somebody like a Morgana is great, but we did expect Lulu's go to Nif, and it does look that way now.
So Aurelia will be Wicked's choice. Where is that Lulu going to be going? Will it be the support? Will it be the mid laner? At the moment, Orianna is going to get locked in, it seems. That will be Froggen, although despite the crowd, they really wanted Nidhi.
Gragas. I think Jesus has to play Gragas here. If you put that in rated, the Kayle for the support, you've got the survival for anybody that gets low. And the disengage that Gragas is going to offer you can knock away this Alliance composition that wants to run at you. If you really wanted to get, funky, you could also go with the Ziggs. That's a lot of disengage from the Hextech minefield. You can knock people away for the satchel charge as well.
Often we've talked about it. Well, Nidalee was played yesterday by Jesus, I believe it was. He's a champion that he's played twice already, if memory serves, and he's won both of those games. He's also been very successful with the Ziggs. These are champions that we've started to say you've got to have to start banning them away from Jesus. You've got to start respecting him.
In my opinion, this is a slightly riskier pick because there's so much movement from Alliance. With Nidalee locked in, if SK Gaming are a little bit out of position, they could just get ran down from Alliance.
Let's not forget the 2 shields that Alliance have. They are giant shields they could be. The Orianna shield and the Lulu shield. They could build up and be enormous and really put a dent in those spears that are going to be thrown from Jesus.
So I'm very excited that the Kayle is going to be in the support role. We did say that it is a possibility. It's something we've mentioned. Thanks to the changes on her ultimate, it does not cost anything. So in lane, if anybody goes low, you're going to throw that intervention down, and SK Gaming are going to have that sort of survival, that extra life. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Sven Skaren to get early ganks going here because I feel like the team fight power of Alliance is significantly stronger than the power of SK. But we have also seen Freddy on Aatrox before. He can split push, he can control the tempo of the games in conjunction with that invisible, scary ever-present Evelynn, it is something that Alliance cannot offer or cannot forget.
And of course, this is the 4.2, so Kayle is very different. Intervention is free mana, the heals speed up as well, etc. It's all very good for Kayle. So we're interested to see how it works out. N-rated once again, pulling out a different support. Of course, you guys at home have been voting on today's match, so let's check in and see how this one was scored. It is going to be 55% of you voting for SK Gaming. So very close in the votes this film.
And I think this is because of yesterday's performance. Both of these teams looked solid yesterday. Both of these teams had very strong wins. And coming into this matchup, considering how the last game was actually very close, I think that's completely fair. In terms of picks and bans, I really feel like the laning phase for SK Gaming is going to be very crucial. Because once we get to those roaming 5v5 situations, the amount of chase that Alliance has, there's no way SK can get away if they're slightly out of position.
Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The game is about to get underway. Game 3 of Friday, and this is a crucial game for both of these teams. Alliance going to be starting out as the blue team, while they're going to be up against SK Gaming as the red team, playing from top to bottom. And both these teams we've seen maybe... I mean, Alliance is a team that actually has been caught out a few times at level 1 play. I expect them to play really cautiously here.
Yeah, I think in terms of this game right now, SK Gaming will most likely want to just defend themselves. They've got a, in my opinion, much weaker level 1. They've got much less to offer in terms of CC and the like. One thing they do have in their favor is that Jezz with Nidalee is going to be able to start throwing down those bushwhack traps. Hasn't skilled it right now. I actually put a point into that javelin toss. So at level 2 or level 3, is going to allow herself to get some more zone control. We've seen how brilliantly Pekka did it earlier against Gambit. Lines up tons and tons of those little traps all over the place and makes it very difficult for Alliance to get in cleanly and safely without stepping over it, getting vision, and giving SK the signal saying, hey, we're coming in.
And what do we make of these two top laners, the Aurelia versus Aatrox? The sword versus the shield as well, both Thoran items being picked up, but different usage.
This is going to be a very interesting lane. So the first thing we need to notice is that Wicked has gone flash teleport, he's not running Ignite. So this immediately signals kill pressure on Freddy's side where he does have that Ignite. Both of these top laners sustain very well. However, Wicked uses mana, and his mana costs are still fairly high. So if Freddy is able to pick some fights in the early levels, force Wicked to burn through his mana pool, it's going to give Freddy an instant advantage in the lane. But this is not a matchup that we see frequently. So I think both champions can scale very well, but I definitely feel that early levels, it's mana that's going to be important for Wicked.
N-rated going straight in, not getting close to Nif there. Nif doing a great trade in the start of this one. It seems that SK are the ones that want to really try and shove this lane, but Alliance are going to try and react in kind.
Now this is an interesting lane because Sivir and Lulu can hard push a lane very quickly. And while Lucian is also good at pushing lanes, he's not as effective as Sivir. Now that you add some Righteous Fury swings in there from N-rated, if Candypan and N-rated have practiced this combo well, they can actually keep tabs and Nif on the back foot when really their combo is more effective at shoving the wave out.
Yeah, they will be heavy to push that wave. I mean, this is N-rated is going to have a big effect on pushing these towers. He's going to be doing a lot of damage to them.
Yeah, and because of the fact that Righteous Fury gives him that, range bonus, it'll work in his favor. Unfortunately, Candypan takes a face full of poke the moment N-rated backs away. He can't really afford to lose that HP in lane. And as I said, I feel like there's a lot of pressure on Spence Garen. The fact that the mid-game team fight's going to be so strong for Alliance, SK needs to disrupt it, delay that, or ideally give themselves a lead going into that portion of the game.
Yeah, we're going to keep our eye and see how much roaming Jezz does as well. It's worked out so well for Jezz when he has been roaming champions. And Nidalee is one of those champions that has got high mobility, can get around the map fast. And Froggen, well, he does tend to stick in that mid lane.
So Froggen is one of the sort of Season 2 mids in terms of playstyle. Farm heavy, get yourself to 3 or 4 items, and then find team fights to work. And on a champion like Orianna, yes, you can roam, but it's not a traditional roaming champion. You really want to scale with your items. I'm just quickly looking down the lines, and one of the things that SK are severely lacking is hard crowd control. You know, Evelynn and Aatrox have got some in their kit. Nidalee's going to offer nothing. Lucian's going to offer nothing. And one tiny slow from Kayle is nothing in comparison to the immense crowd control that Alliance will bring down. Multiple knockups, pullbacks, Glitterlon slows. So I feel like SK, once again, just have to be very calculated with how and where they pick their fights.
Wicked making sure he doesn't miss any of the CS that Freddy was shoving on towards his tower. Freddy seems quite confident in pushing his lane as well up against Alliance. He doesn't seem to be worrying too much about Shook. Shook on Wukong, who has played immensely in the last few times he's been able to get that champion. So keep your eyes on Shook, whether he's going to be jumping out that jungle. And
he definitely will be. If you look at his performance yesterday, the moment he got his Cyclone available, he flashed Cyclone. He actually spent quite a lot of time in the mid lane. He was working in conjunction with Froggen's Karthus. And you can do a similar sort of role with that Orianna. Get the Cyclone down, get the Shockwave, and really amplify the amount of time that the person is stuck there. And both of these junglers are much more effective at level 6. The moment Svenskeren gets Agony's Embrace and the moment Shook gets Cyclone, all of a sudden their junglers basically switch on in the game.
Froggen's starting to develop a rather healthy lead in the top lane right now. In the mid lane, sorry, 38 to 22 CS, which is why we may be seeing Svenskeren starting to pay a little bit of attention towards his mid lane. Instead, he's heading up towards the top. And you know what, looking at Wicked, we've talked about this so many times on that Aurelia, it's actually pretty low on mana.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Because Wicked is forced to use his abilities and burn through his resource bar, Freddy's got a little bit of an advantage here. I also think Wicked is playing very defensive. We haven't seen him getting any sort of damage on Aatrox, a little bit scared of the knock-up, the slow, and the very hard-hitting Bloodthirst Blood price that Freddy can put down. It's the first time we've seen him getting a good stun, and that was thanks to Freddy being in range of the turret, actually.
Big gap still continuing. Froggen still got our 13 CS lead, and you know, this is actually one of those rivalries we've not really discussed a great deal of. Froggen and Jesus actually do not get on that well.
No, they definitely do not. And we've heard both players being fairly outspoken about their opponents in the past.
Yeah.
And in terms of this matchup right now, Orianna's going to have the advantage thanks to the significantly better low-level wave clear. Command Attack and Dissonance is already applying a lot of poke and zoning to Jesus, and Jesus wants to get some mana regen from the likes of an Athene's and get his Cougar form before he can really, you know, clear waves quite quickly. So we expect Jesus to start closing that gap from level 6 onwards.
Teleport from Wicked back in towards that top lane, has been back, went straight for a Sheen, first item back. Very aggressive stuff there. Clearly going to go towards that Trinity Force, but a Sheen as the first item signals a bit of intent against Freddy there.
Yeah, and what it also does is it allows Wicked to get additional mana, which is he's very starved with in the top lane, and it also gives him those little poke damages. Dash onto Freddy, get the Sheen proc in conjunction with some of your true damage, and then back away. And if you can keep just hammering him down a little bit with those procs, it works in your favor. Great Glitzer Lance from Nif, catching both Enrated and Candy Panda.
Yeah, some great poke there, just didn't follow through from Tabs. The Boomerang Blade not quite landing on towards them, but it does force them back. It was Candy Panda starting to win out in that CS battle down the bottom, but he is going to be the first to back away, which means it is going to be Tabs that will take the lead by the time he's got back to lane.
One of the things that's really nice about having that Kayle in your lane is you forget her passive, the Holy Fervor. It actually reduces armor and magic resistance. So while he continues to auto-attack, it's splash damage on both Tabs and Nif, and shredding the resistances, making your combo hit harder in the early game. So it's a great start for Candy Panda and Enrated. They've got this unorthodox lane duo, and they were ahead on CS for a little bit until they recalled. But very importantly, they kept Tabs and Nif away from their tower, kept them on their side of the river, and it was calculated. They were never at risk of being ganked for this opening 6-7 minutes.
Let's go and take a roam past. He's going to be going past the pink ward though, which you already see Jesus has passed. It's just in that bush there on your screens. So they will get spotted out. Of course, they will see it, which is why Nif was also heading in between them. This may actually be signaling some intent from SK Gaming themselves, and it was potentially a red buff invade they wanted to go for, but it was quickly spotted by Alliance.
So I wonder if that was either just a warding mission or if that was the attempt to go for red. You can see that red has not spawned just yet for Alliance. SK got themselves in, got some pretty good vision. Now it's respawn, and take a look at this. We talked about Jesus roaming. He's already moving to help Svenskeren. The duo lane is coming up as well. So immediately, SK's got a numbers advantage. Alliance can't even challenge. They've lost their first buff.
Good play from SK Gaming, going for that aggressive red buff invade, hit and run, and Svenskeren walks away without any danger from Alliance. So Shook slightly being outfoxed there by Svenskeren in the jungle.
Yeah, it was really good play from SK, very calculated. They knew they wanted to challenge it. They knew they wanted to I want to say, I don't want to say shut down, but they wanted to try control Shook a little bit more. Considering how strong Shook was yesterday in Wukong, I think it's a very smart decision. In the top lane, Wicked's on Freddy.
Oh, Freddy in all sorts of trouble. It has got that Bloodwell, remember, and it's going to be needed. And Wicked, well, he may be able to get on and get the stun here. You can see Freddy having to jump away from that one, so that passive is not available.
Well, that was brilliant from Wicked. He just threw down his ultimate and the rest of his abilities, even without Ignite. That Sheen alone allowed him to stomp Freddy. I mean, that was completely one-sided. Freddy had his Bloodwell pop. It's now on cooldown for the next 4 minutes if memory serves. And he's going to be a little more careful. Shook is going in on a Arete.
He's already popped it. He's going to go on towards him. He has got Cyclone available if he wants it. But the moment Svenskeren shows himself, they back away. They turn it back on him. They get the Cyclone. They get the Wild Growth. Svenskaren's getting burned down. But the intervention comes out. And now Shook's going to get zapped down by Candy Panda. Can he get a second? No. Tabs flashes away there. And Nif is safe.
And there you go. Support Kayle working out in its very first game. The intervention saves Svenskeren. Because SK were grouped up, they managed to get the heal down. And a great play from Candy Panda. Flashes in, piercing light, first blood. This has also opened up the Dragon. Nobody from Alliance is going to challenge.
And you've also got to question the combination that they use. That Cyclone and the Wild Growth were almost at the same time, so the double pop-up didn't happen.
No, they didn't stack their CC effectively. I think it was a little bit of panic mode from Alliance, not being on the same page. Now, Candy Panda is in a little bit, I thought they might have run on him, but Wild Growth and On the Hunt had already been thrown down, so Candy Panda gets away unscathed. I think Candy Panda is being a little brave, because every time Enrater's gone away, Candy hasn't backed off. He's just sitting there and he continues to take more poke. He's going to be a little more careful as more items are secured.
And you've always got that worry that Svenskeren could be around. When there's an Evelynn on the map, you're just never quite sure if you should be going aggressive.
No, and I want to see how Svenskeren itemizes his Evelynn. Because we've seen multiple builds in the past. We've seen, you know, ADs, we've seen APs, we've seen hybrid, like mixed damage. Right now, Svenskeren's already gone for that Spirit of the Elder Lizard, so gone for the AD jungle item. I want to see where he goes from here, because you can build in multiple ways against, you know, the composition. I would imagine fairly armor heavy. When you consider that Irelia, Wukong, and Several are all in the mix, it would make sense to get yourself maybe a Randuin's Omen in the not too distant future.
So ward placements again, trying to spot out Svenskeren. Svenskeren saw it happen, takes away that pink buff, a pink ward rather, that was just placed in there. So that investment from Shook, that was this time around, is not paying off, and he needs to start being a little bit more sneaky with those pink wards.
Yeah, got to place them a bit more efficiently. One of the best things to do with those pink wards is place them on your side of the jungle. You can see that there's been basically 2 pinks on the map throughout most of this game for Alliance. One in the top lane, one in that red buff area. And it's safe, almost guaranteed vision. First little support battle and basically nothing happened. That was a little anticlimactic. Enrate is also another one that we want to keep our eyes on. Where does he itemize? He's going for the Nomad's Medallion as his first item, going to get himself towards that Talisman of Ascension. But where does he go next? Does he get ability power or something similar?
Shook this time trying to sneak in that bottom lane, but as you just saw, SK putting that ward in that bottom half of the bush, so almost certainly we'll see him coming in towards them, which means he's going to have to back away, but he's sticking around, he's hanging around here. Shook is wasting time while Svenskeren takes himself another pink ward. On the hunt being used, Alliance not even close to closing that one out.
So that was a little anticlimactic, I feel. I think SK completely aware of it. They were never really at risk of being caught out. What worked for Shook yesterday was the flash engages, was being close enough to catch him out. Now Froggen's going to get caught.
Right, just step away from that one, gets himself the speed, and walks off.
So that was a little anticlimactic. Svenskeren, we talked about it, there's no hard CC. Even if Svenskeren had thrown down Agony's Embrace, it would have lined Froggen up for 1 spear. And Froggen still had Flash, he still had Command Protect. There isn't enough instant burst there from that Nidalee yet, who hasn't even completed a major item, to really be at threat. So I think smart play from Sven not to waste his ultimate. And Froggen, as we said, you know, it's quite difficult to burst down Orianna with an Evelynn and Nidalee because Command Protect, because of the movement from Dissonance, and of course having full access to a Flash as well.
Yeah, these 2 mid laners are going to be some way off of their full power, so this one may go a little bit long. We'll see how it works out. 13 minutes in so far, and it's a 1,000 gold advantage for SK Gaming. And you know, we've talked about this a long time in the past. The investment that you put in towards those pink wards, because there's an Evelynn, actually does mean. Get back to that, we'll just see whether Freddy and Wicked do like to go towards it. Bloodwell is available this time around for Freddy. He's decided he's going to stick around aggressive. Now he realizes he's in all sorts of trouble. He gets caught by the Cyclone, tries to get away. The Bloodwell is popped. This time he's going to have to try and get away from it. Don't think it's going to happen. Wicked should be able to get him down. Wicked very low. He needed the help from Shook for that one.
Freddy should have flashed first and then gone for the Dark Flight. He was halfway through channeling that Dark Flight, and while he was mid-air, Shook knocked him even higher into the air with the Cyclone. It cancelled the distance, and that meant Freddy was stuck in place. Now, I was looking at the matchup. Since Freddy got himself that Giant's Belt, he was actually winning that 1v1 against Wicked. Wicked is healed, he's come back, he's going to get this tower with the use of the teleport. Not 100% sure it's the best, but now Nif and Tabs are being dove.
Going for the Tabs, they want him, they're going to get him, I think. They're going to see the Wild Growth will be enough to save him. No, Gaze goes down. Nif's going to be the next focus target. Have they got enough to close the gap? The Culling's going to come out, doesn't quite glance on towards him. And Nif, the little pixie, runs away.
It's not over yet. Shook and Wicked, they actually have decided to back away from the top tower. Now, let's break this down quickly. On the bottom lane, that dive from Sven was perfect. Enrated didn't even use intervention. He didn't need it. Candy Panda was tanking the turret for a little bit. All he burned was the barrier. If we go to the top lane, we did see that in the 1v1, Freddy with the Cutlass and the Giant's Belt was able to beat the Sheen and Phage of Wicked. Wicked has since upgraded that to a Trinity Force, so it's going to give him a little bit of a power spike, but I still feel like Freddy at level 10, almost hitting level 11, should be able to win those duels. Freddy just needs to be a little more cautious, popping the flash first and not allowing his Dark Flight to get interrupted, because Shook got himself a kill on the side of Alliance.
Very aggressive stuff from Nif here, chasing him all the way up the lane, making sure he gets on towards him. Drops that wave down low enough that Tabs can clear it out. And in terms of CS, well, we can see it's still Candy Panda that's been dominating that lane in the early levels, as well as Froggen. He's winning out in that mid lane, 170 now to 143, so big advantage over Jezza. But no surprises there. Jezza's just going to continue throwing those spears. They've both got different jobs when it comes to team fights.
Yeah, very different indeed. Froggen needs to wait. Oh,
Nif completely caught out here. This time Svenskeren will close on towards him and get himself a very easy kill. I said Nif was being a little over-aggressive early on, and they made him pay.
Candy Panda actually used his flash to try to get the last hit, didn't secure it, so Summoner Spell is down. With Nif being dead and with 15 seconds on Dragon, SK Gaming should be able to challenge if they group up very quickly. I think part of the reason they did that tower dive earlier was to try and get all of that vision. You can see right in the lane, right now where Wukong is standing, I believe he's clearing a ward out as well, as Dragon's getting ready to spawn.
We do see Wicked actually heading down here already. He's got a long way ahead of Freddy. Does mean Jez is going to step away. Shook's going to get caught out. Maybe no, Svenskeren can't catch on towards him. Now Alliance have got themselves a 4-man group. That's going to be a 5 in a moment because Nif is almost there.
Yeah, so Alliance have actually delayed SK a tiny bit. It should be enough time to get Nif into play. He's going to have Wild Growth available. Now, if a good spear or two lands from Jez's, it's going to make it much more difficult for Alliance to get away with these engages. However, there's not a lot of ability power on the side of Jez. He's just got that Athena's and Holy Grail to work with. So he's connected 2 already. Other than hitting Nif, it's not doing too much damage right now.
Yeah, Freddy is back. Doesn't have that Bloodwell available, but he did get himself a Warden's Mail on the last back. Shook takes another spear. It's a pretty close range one there from Jez's. They're going to continue that damage. Freddy doing a great job at stopping Froggen taking down that turret. Maybe that's what Alliance are going to go for here. They're going to go for that trade. We do see the rest of Alliance. They're all coming up here. They want to try and push for the tower.
Yeah, I think the tower is going to be the better objective. Nif doesn't have as much MR, so he's getting chunked down by those spears. Tower great. Dragon still has not been taken. So SK losing out on the positional game in that trade. Alliance rushing down the objective. SK couldn't respond.
And that was just Candy Panda. Showed himself down that bottom lane, went for that wave of minions, and then everybody just quickly reacting.
And part of the reason that SK are not going for a fight or not trying to rush Dragon, in a 5v5 scenario, especially in this area of the map, on the hunt, Cyclone, Shockwave, Wild Growth, means SK loses a fight. They've snuck Dragon because Alliance have not challenged. And I think SK actually probably did the smart thing. If they had forced a fight and grouped up, they could have been destroyed by the very powerful 5v5 team comp of Alliance.
So objectives traded. It's still SK Gaming with that gold advantage, but there's only a 3,000 gold, or 2,500 gold at the 18-minute mark. Tab showed himself down that bottom, which is why SK knew they were safe to go for that Dragon, which does mean we continue the farming session in the lanes. Trinity Force now completed by Wicked. Meanwhile, Freddy, well, he's had to try and counter what Wicked's been building. He has to go for some of those defensive stats instead of that Blade the Rune King, which he wanted to build straight away.
Yeah, I think the Rendian Omen is very important against Alliance because of the fact that 4 of the members want to be running at you. Even though Orianna is a major spellcaster, she wants to be spamming command attack, command dissonance every time it's up and wants to get, 2, 3, 4 of them off in a team fight if possible. So Randians will help. Now Freddy is trying to bait out the fight with Wicked. Here comes Sven.
So it's going to come around the side. Wicked does not get baited into that one. He's not going to fall for it. He's realizing that Freddy, while you're being this aggressive now, why? What is around me?
We'll see what they do. The rest of Alliance are now grouping towards this top lane on the mini-map, so Freddy also needs to back away. There's not enough vision of the members of Alliance, so I expect SK to play this a little bit safer. While the focus is on the top lane for the Alliance members, the rest of SK are grouping towards this middle.
We're going to try and catch out Tabs as he heads towards that bottom wave. He is actually coming through. Ooh, sees the red buff, which they were just trying to sneak away. But Tabs spots that one out. The rest of the team will react.
So Tabs and the rest of Alliance now in front of the red buff. SK once again need to be very, very careful. They're actually split up. 3 members of SK on the bottom half of the buff. That's stolen!
The steal. Fantastic stuff. Jesus comes in there. They had the ward placement and they had no cover on that one, which is actually sloppy play from Alliance. They should have realized that was coming.
Yeah, the fact that SK were grouping there, SK had pretty good vision. You can see all the way on the right-hand side of the buff. Now that SK are split, Alliance realize that they've got that strength. On the Huntsman thrown.
He's already trying to get away from this one. Oh, he's going to flash away. Freddy should be safe. Shockwave not going to pull in, but Cyclone comes in there. Now Freddy's getting caught out. Intervention being used up. Shockwave pulls in 2 members of SK Gaming, but they are safe for now.
The question is, can Alliance keep it up? If they'd stuck to the tower, they may have been trading. Teleports being used from Wicked to prevent Candy Panda securing this.
That's going to mean the top lane is going to be pushed by Alliance. It was Wicked that was up there. He did all the work, but he's had to go in defensive duties. Svenskaren's going to come in there, but I'm not too sure they can hold this one off.
Now, we do see Alliance have backed away as SK got into position. If we go back to that mid lane fight, had Jez's played a Ziggs or a Gragas in that situation, they could have prevented that pressure being put on them, could have knocked them away with the Gragas ultimate or slowed them with a minefield. In that circumstance, a defensive Nidalee offers very, very little from a team that is just throwing themselves at you. What we do see now is because Alliance pushed so hard in the top lane, it's given SK Gaming free time in the mid lane, and they've got a lot of damage on that turret.
Wicked comes in, has to use that ultimate to clear the wave, but as you say, that was a big chunk of damage done to that tower. SK Gaming still showing danger signs here for Alliance. They do still have that gold lead. We'll see whether it equates into anything in the next fight, but it's not really something they want. They're going to just avoid all of the team fights. They don't want it. They want to poke.
Yeah, I really feel like that's SK's game plan. Unless they feel that they can instantly burst somebody and then, you know, run in a 5v4 fight, I'm expecting SK to play in somewhat of a similar playstyle that Fnatic just did. Play split push, play the lanes, you know, try to get towers and try to get poke with Nidalee. And every time Alliance try to group and force them down, is just back away. You see in the itemization, Freddy's got himself a Randians, Svenskaren's got himself an early Randians. We talked about how physical damage heavy the Alliance composition is, and movement speed heavy, Randians deals with both.
Well, this is actually falling behind a little bit on Froggen. You can see Froggen's got himself that Rabadon's Death Cap already. Jez is probably quite close to it, but he is about 40 CS behind on Froggen, so not quite there just yet. They don't really have as much universal gold. Actually, tell a lie, they've got 2 dragons to 1 tower of the 2 towers, so it's probably close in global gold. But the waves at the moment are not being shoved by either team. Everybody's holding off. That bottom one's one that Alliance have sort of had to defend pretty heavily. It's been SK Gaming that keep going down there. Meanwhile, the top inner turret has also been poked down. Freddy at the moment pushing him again on towards that top lane. Svenskaren thinking of coming up to help. So
Dragon is up in a minute and a half, and I think both of these teams will set their sights on that prize. And we see that SK have done a lot more deep warding than Alliance over the entire game. There's a couple of good wards on the red side jungle where Alliance have got vision, but for the most part, SK have grouped up, they've gone in, and they've warded as a team. I need to see if they're going to do that again in preparation for this next Dragon, because it's basically how the fights have happened. Right now, though, Wicked's coming in from behind, Svenskaren's coming from the river. This is a lot of people on the hunt.
They're going to try and go for it. On the hunt will be pulled in there. Shockwave not really landing where it needed to. SK Gaming are doing a good job of kiting away from all of that damage. Now they're going to Candy Panda. He's going to get focused on it. He's in all sorts of trouble. Not really going to be enough. The barrier comes out. Shook's going to try and close it towards him. Now it's Svenskaren. They're switching their focus and maybe not getting on the right target. And SK Gaming disengage just about at the right time. 30 seconds to Dragon. Alliance surely have this in the bag.
SK Gaming got away with that one. I feel quite lucky. Had Wicked been closer to the fight, he could have dove onto Candy Panda and potentially got themselves some kills. Because of the fact that Alliance threw everything at SK and didn't stack their own ultimates effectively enough, it didn't hold them in place. Tabs is pushing the bottom lane while the rest of SK are in the middle.
But look at that. 4 members of SK, all taken low, all now pushing, because they've got 2 healers. They've got big heals coming out from Nidalee and Kayle, and it is working, and they've just shoved back in towards that mid lane. We saw, of course, the bottom lane turret going down. Tabs is going to take that one, but Tabs is all off on his own right now, and SK going for Dragon.
It goes a step further than that. Not only do they have the heal of Nidalee and the heal of Kayle, you've got Aatrox with built-in sustain and lifesteal, and a Bloodthirster on Candy Panda. So they get themselves back up to full health very, very quickly. And once again, allowing SK to play the map game. They push the middle lane down, force the Alliance to respond, and SK have started Dragon. They should be aware the ultimates are not up for Alliance, and that's why they're forcing this fight.
The cull-in on Wicked on the hunt, not up for Tabs either. They are actually stepping away from the Dragon here. They should be finishing this one off as quick as possible. Cyclone is back up, Shockwave is back up, but Alliance, they're backing away from this one. Freddy's going to draw them in. It's the 3-man Shockwave. Freddy gets the intervention on him. Cyclone lands on 4 members of SK Gaming, but they've already managed to take Shook down. Now they're chosen on towards Nip and Wicked. They are all low. Tabs is going to get focused off. He may well get Spence going down.
The heal!
The Glitter Lance comes out. The heal lands out there from Jesus, and Froggen can't get close enough. He's going to continue chasing, but he will be running into spears, and that was a Dragon and a kill for SK Gaming. But look at Wicked. He's taking advantage. He's trying to shove that mid.
Somebody give Freddy a noddy badge, because he held 4 members of Alliance at bay. He held them back, prevented them getting involved in that fight. Even though there was a 3-man Shockwave and a 4-man knockup, it didn't mean a thing for Alliance because they weren't stacked together. It wasn't at the same time, and Freddy was zoning them out. Freddy's Bloodwell didn't even get popped during the course of that whole fight. That was brilliant play.
I think me and the rest of the world don't understand what a noddy badge is, maybe.
A gold star.
A gold star, that's more like it. But I'm sure in Africa, someone somewhere's like, I know what you mean, Trevor. I know exactly what you're saying. Let's check this fight.
So the things that you want to watch for, take a look at Freddy. He's in the middle of the entire Alliance team, even going through the stun. Wicked does not dive the back line. Wicked sticks onto Freddy, and he's forced so low by Freddy that Wicked zoned away from the fight. Even though the Cyclone got thrown on SK's back line, it was to no avail. Tabs was not landing auto attack damage, Froggen couldn't get more spells off, and the heal from Jesus keeps Svenskeren alive. Just perfect play from SK. They realized the ultimates from Alliance weren't there, which is why they started it early, and then they dealt with the individual ultimates perfectly as well.
Well, SK Gaming have still contained themselves with that 3,000 gold advantage. Very, very close still between these two teams. It's going to be interesting to see if Alliance can land all those combos. SK Gaming almost certainly will go down in a team fight. No doubt about it. A Cyclone, a Shockwave, like you say, with the Wild Growth, everything combined, definitely will get themselves a multiple kills on SK Gaming. However, SK Gaming, not interested in that, as you just saw. And with all those heals that control the intervention, they have really good single target savior, effectively. They can keep someone alive for a long time. And if that's Freddy, who's going to maybe build up a little bit tankier after this one, he wants to play the Rune King. We'll see how it goes.
So one of the things that does work in SK's favor is that all of their champions are also fairly mobile. If Kayle heals herself, gets a speed boost. Lucian can dash. We can also see Nidalee, Evelynn, and Aatrox that can move around the map. So as long as SK are not way out of position and caught by surprise, they can dodge a lot. Now we've seen SK, they were trying to push the top lane while all that was going on. Tabs is solo pushing this bottom lane, and he's most likely going to get a lot of damage on this tower. Sven's coming in from the side.
He may take it down here. Svenskeren will come in, but with the tower, is it going to be worth it? I'm not too sure. On the hunt's being used, but the culling just shreds him down, and Candy Panda gets a kill.
The rest of Alliance were too late to get there. I think the call from Alliance was, go, 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 we'll be there, and unfortunately, Tabs just needed to back off a tiny bit sooner. Missing the notes in that play, you might say.
Absolutely, a sad song being used for him there, I feel. Spears coming out, who only went on towards the I can never remember the damn name of it. It's the
Decoy.
The Decoy, that's the damn one. I was thinking Mimic for some reason of LeBlanc, but he's obviously not a female. He is a monkey. It's a slight difference.
Slight difference. The one thing I still want to say is that SK cannot afford to get caught in the jungle or in an enclosed lane. If they're all group pushing a tower, say sieging a tower, for example, it's actually very difficult for SK to do that because they run the risk of being ran down. So we need to see how SK play the rest of this game. I'm still expecting to play like a 1-3-1 split push, or even a 1-4. Leave Freddy in the top lane and the rest of the team roaming.
Well, Sunfire keeps being built by Wicked now. The one concern for Alliance at the moment is while they are keeping up with the gold, they really have a very good team fight comp. Candy Panda is again starting to build himself a lead. He's 4-0-1. He's got a farm lead over Tabs, and he's got a giant gold lead because of those 4 kills and an assist.
The one thing that SK do not have, even though Candy Panda is that strong, is they're still 2 towers down. they've got this very strong sort of poking, kiting composition, if I can call it that, but they're not actually getting map presence right now. Every time fights have happened, SK are running back, and it's allowing Alliance to get onto SK's towers. So SK need to find a way to get Candy Panda onto a tower, and it's very risky because, again, Alliance are so strong at running them down.
Oh, Wicked once again, solo split pushing that top wave, driving it in on towards that inhibitor turret. Mid lane actually, ping's coming down. Wicked's maybe going to think of making a move here. They're going to try and pinch move, try and catch him out. Shook, of course, with that flash cyclone available to him. But SK Gaming quickly backing off. And
now the rest of SK need to respond and get here quickly enough. If we think back to last week's game, that was a massive spear on Tabs. If we think back to last week's games, SK Gaming had secured an inhibitor and a Baron. And because they grouped as a 5-man against Shook's Wukong, it allowed Alliance to engage in them and get kills. SK are not running into the same mistakes. You can see Freddy's nowhere near and he doesn't have teleport.
Trying to bully them out of this one, but, well, SK Gaming do have a lot of wave clear. Candy Panda going aggressive there. Thought he could catch something on the end of him. He's got to be so careful of that because Shook could just turn around at an instant.
Yeah, that's very brave. You really shouldn't use your Relentless Pursuit to dive forward on the front line because you just run the risk of being caught out. We do see those sweeping lenses, numerous of them on both of the teams trying to get some vision control. And now SK may have caught Tabs again.
Svenskone's coming in there. He wants to get on towards him. Tabs having to use that on the hunt to try and get away. Does pop the ultimate actually as well. So Svenskone not quite catching him out there. They will take that red buff away and that's going to force them to one man down. Can they continue pushing?
Now they know on the hunt's not available. So this is a very big component of the team fights from Alliance. The spears from Jez's are now starting to hurt. How do SK respond to this mid lane push? They've left Candy Pan in the bottom lane. Everybody else seems to be recalling, and they're going to try to defend.
Yeah, quick distraction there from SK Gaming, doing a good job. Freddy, Svenskone, and Jez is all defending off that mid lane, while the bottom lane you can see Candy Panda taking down turrets and continue pushing on here. He's not done yet. He's going for the inhib.
And it's also going to be very difficult for Tabs to deal with Candy Panda in a 1v1 situation. I expect Tabs to just clear the wave and try to defend the tower. As you see him doing there, Candy Panda's also backed away.
Yeah, no mana for Candy Panda, so doesn't want to stick around. He wouldn't really be able to dash away. It will be a dragon though, and going to continue taking away those dragons. Every single dragon so far for SK Gaming, I believe, 5-1 in kills. So that gold lead is continuing to pile up.
4 out of 4 dragons. There's been one minor challenge from Alliance, but SK played it perfectly. And one of the things that we have seen from Alliance is when they do not have control of objectives, they've lost games. Their rotations this time around have been fairly good, and they seem to try to make the best of a situation. Earlier, when SK got a dragon, Alliance got a tower. But now that Alliance have pushed SK all the way back to those inner turrets, it's so much more difficult and so much more risky for Alliance to go for another tower when SK are trying to secure themselves a dragon.
His Veil has been built by Candy Panda, wants to make sure he's not involved in that Cyclone or Shockwave. He can get out of there. Of course, Wicked could also be diving for him, so everything's starting to be built up defensively from these teams as required. Wicked up against Freddy. They haven't really gone at it since that early few levels where Wicked had the advantage, but I feel it may well be much closer this time around.
Yeah, I also think that with Freddy having now, so many higher levels, he's level 16 with Massacre and Blade of the Rune King, I don't think there's enough damage from Alliance to take him down. Nif just gets melted by those spears. That's a Deathcap Void Staff on Jez's, and he hit a lot of spears yesterday as well. We'll see if we can keep up the accuracy today.
Yeah, it's something we've been seeing a lot of in the Korean scene, a lot in the North American scene, but finally we're starting to see a lot more Nidalee in the European scene. I did wonder about it. Jesus was the first to really bring it out in the European scene this split, and it has been played to much success this week. I'd love to see what the win rate's like for it as we go in towards the Super Week next Tuesday.
So one of the things that is great about Nidalee is that when you are landing high damage spears, you get so much control. But it's a very big risk because if you are shut down early, if you're ganked early on and you don't get the items, you offer very little. Now, all of a sudden, Alliance are a little bit split up. SK are thinking about going. They've got to be so careful.
Svenskone catching all 5 members and towards her with that ultimate. They will catch them out here. You can see Freddy coming in around the side there. Cyclone being used, but it's just not enough. Intervention on Jesus. Wicked has to try and get away, but he gets pounced on by Jesus. SK Gaming are shredding through Alliance here, but Tabs turns around, tries to put some of that damage back on towards Candy Panda. It's a duel back and forth. Svenskone's trying to get closer, but Candy Panda takes him down. Now Nif getting caught out. Spear from Jesus. Froggen the only man standing. The Bloodwell comes out from Freddy. Spears going back. Jesus is very low on this one. I'm not too sure whether they can push for Baron. It's risky with Froggen still alive.
That was a very important play from SK Gaming. They caught Alliance unawares. Now Froggen's trying to do the best he can. Candy Panda's on it.
Candy Panda tries to duel it around there. Froggen gets caught out. A spear comes out from Jesus, and that will be the ace for SK Gaming and the Baron.
That was a phenomenal play, and I talked about how Alliance had the better 5v5, but in that situation, SK Gaming jumped in first. They were able to get so much damage. Take a look at this. You can see that every single member of Alliance is grouped up in that bush there with the exception of Wicked. Candy Panda was able to dash away from the shockwave, didn't take the damage, and even though it's an enclosed space, because of all the damage that Shook took early on, he couldn't get a full channel on that Cyclone. There was no wombo combo from Alliance, and that's the risk you run when you have those big teamfight comps. You have to admit though, that is a lot of damage being returned to SK, so if SK had not executed this flawlessly, which they did, it could have gone so much worse. They end up getting Froggen in a couple of seconds, and they grab themselves a Baron.
And that shockwave, it caught no one. If it had held on just a little bit longer and pulled the trigger, you saw them all clumped up there chasing. That dissonance did a lot of damage. With a shockwave on top, could have absolutely destroyed SK.
That shockwave, even though Candy Panda has that Banshee's Veil, it still would have hit incredibly hard. Now the rest of Alliance have to deal with a Baroned up SK that have this excessive poke from Nidalee, and this tower's going to get dropped. That was the first wave. Candy Panda's tanking it, for goodness sake.
Tanks down that turret and gets himself the turret for Spire. Nif, look at that, almost 100 to 0, one spear from Jesus, taken very, very low. Nif's going to have to start getting some magic resist, or he's going to get popped.
He's already getting popped. I think right now the problem for Alliance is that they need to force up 5v5, and they've been unable to. The reason they beat Fnatic yesterday is that they were able to force fights, and Shook had, you know, perfect flash cyclones. This time round, SK have not been in a position where they could get jumped on, and then the few times they have been in that position, they've responded well. They've backed out at the appropriate time. They haven't allowed themselves to all get caught by every ability. A Cyclone hits without a Shockwave. A Shockwave hits, then later the Cyclone comes. So it's very coordinated play from them.
And you know, we've been talking about how well Amazing's been doing, obviously MVP last week and maybe even this week, but you got to talk about Svenskeren again. He's still having another brilliant game. 1-0-6, involved in, what, 70% of the kills so far for SK Gaming. And
his Pantheon was banned away. I feel like Pantheon is Svenskeren's strongest champion. It's taken away. He doesn't go for the likes of Elise, and Elise was also removed from the pool as well. No, I'm lying to you.
No,
Elise was available. Elise was available and unpicked once again. And Svenskeren picks up this Evelyn. And, you know, it's something we talk about often on the desk, that when an Evelyn's there, you have to worry about the pressure. Even if she's not ganking and not there, you have to buy pink wards. You have to invest that money. Psychologically, you have to be aware that she could be there at a moment's notice.
Yeah, and that big fight, that ace that turned it around was all started by Svenskeren. He was the one that threw himself in there. Banshee's Veil now completed as well for Svenskeren, along with that Radiant Zoma which he had early on. The Hex Drinker, he's got so much magic damage against Froggen. He's got so much armor prevention against the rest of Alliance. He really is a tanky member running that front line.
Now, one of the things that I think Alliance have done a little, maybe not as well as we've seen in the past, Wicked hasn't been with the team at the moment the fight has started. Wicked's always been a little bit late. Candy Panda again is just going to tank up the turret hits, he'll regen off the minion wave, and he's got Baron sustaining him as well, plus all the heals from the rest of his laners. Look at that on Tabs!
Yeah, Tabs in all sorts of trouble. That's the AD carry, having to step away from this one. That means that SK Gaming can push on this inhibitor turret. No pressure there. They just walk in, take what they want from Alliance, and, well, they are defenseless right now. Can they land that shockwave? No. Froggen can't pull the trigger. Inhibitor taken.
At this point in time, even if they do land a shockwave, you've got Freddy that's got a revive from his passive, as well as a Guardian Angel. You've got intervention that's going to prevent anybody dying, and all of the massive heals from Nidalee as well. It is an incredibly difficult task for Alliance to pull themselves back. They needed their team fights to have worked much earlier in the game. It didn't, and now SK have got to a Fnatic level of hope where they can just sit back, throw out spears, wait for one to land, and go for the objective.
And that's exactly what's happened. When it lands on your AD carry, as it just did, you basically take an objective. Candy Panda again, as you say, you can tank out these turrets. He's quite happy to take some hits, back away, get a heal from either Jesus or N-rated alongside him. He's just getting tanked down. There's literally nothing Alliance can do. Of course, there's the Baron buff on, but they are making great use of it. Wicked trying to split push. Goes down the bottom lane, gets himself that inner turret, and he's going to continue pushing. SK Gaming, though, all backing off. He's going to have to step away.
So at this stage of time, N-rated has gone for a very utility-heavy build. He's got the coin, he's got Mikhail's Crucible for another heal on top of the heals I've already got, and when he casts his W, it's healing for 270 hit points, with the, of course, not counting in the intervention, which can also work in his favor. You've also got a 450 ability power Nidalee that's going to be throwing down several hundred hit points with the heals as well. So what Alliance need to do is catch SK alone, catch them split up, where they cannot stack all of those multiple heals from multiple champions and then try to force more objectives. But as it stands, Alliance can't run the risk to because they're just going to lose more towers.
Oh, they're going to try and turn it Cyclone. They caught Candy Panda out, but again, intervention goes down. He's perfectly safe. Then Seren comes in, gets the ultimate on all 5 members of Alliance once again. But this time it's a lot more looser. But look at SK Gaming, they're just picking off Alliance side by side. Svenskeren tanking out Wicked and Nif. He's quite happily pushing all the pressure on towards him. Wicked now takes a spear. That drops his hit points down. Freddy closes in towards him, flashing away left, right, and center. They're chasing in the top. That's going to be Nif going down. Froggen's so low here. Candy Panda caught out singly. Is it going to be enough? No, he's got the lifesteal and turns it back on. Guardian Angel from Wicked pops. He's going to respawn back in there. Can he get on Candy Panda? Candy Panda just hanging off the side and will back away. Crazy fight. 3 kills picked up so far on SK Gaming. They're going to push through the mist. They can take the game.
N-rated and Svenskeren had a hashtag LCS big play. Intervention saves Candy Panda, and Svenskeren lands a 4-man Agony's Embrace. We talked about how Wicked needed to be with his team. He was there, and it didn't matter. Sven held him in place, slowed them down. Now SK are on the Nexus turret.
Pushing, last one, Nexus turret down. Shockwave comes out. It may well have done enough to save the day just for now. That's going to be the Bloodwell pop from Freddy. He's going to come back up here. Froggen's going to try and get another distance on him. Not enough. SK Gaming will step away. They're not finishing it just yet.
Now Wicked dives in.
Or just in towards the culling. Not going to be enough. He will just back away from that one. So, let's take stock. Let's slow things down. SK Gaming, big advantage. 1 Nexus turret down.
Now, if that fight had happened 20 minutes ago, Alliance would have got the kills. Had Alliance been closer on gold and not so far behind in terms of statistics, they could potentially have shut Candy Panda down very early on. And we talked about how they needed to find stragglers of the SK composition and throw themselves at. They did. Unfortunately, it was just too many saves. That intervention was great. Also, with Freddy going down under the turret, it's actually the GA that gets popped first, and then the Bloodwell follows second. So he still had another revive, even if they'd stuck around. SK played it safe, backed out. Realistically, I'm going to expect him to challenge for Baron, and then go to close the game out.
That's what it's going to be. The Baron just spawned up there, but Alliance are actually pushing, trying to go towards that mid lane. They're going to run headlong in towards SK Gaming. A freshly bought and paid for SK Gaming, who immediately, you see the Cullion pop straight away from Candy Panda, not really hitting anything. They're wild targets, but with a huge gold advantage, Alliance really are playing a risky game. They're going to pop the talisman. The On The Hunt's going to go down there. They're catching on towards Freddy. Has got that Bloodwell available. May well have to use it, but coming in at the side. Svenskeren gets in there. Manages to get on towards Froggen. Froggen have to run away. The spear lands on him. Froggen goes down. You see Nif going down. We see Shook going down. Taps goes down. Alliance are falling left, right, center. SK Gaming just closing in to finish this game.
SK Gaming have done it. They managed to keep their entire team alive. The Bloodwell from Freddy revives him in the fight, and even though Alliance managed to find a squishy-ish target, the heals, the survives, the revives, SK get 4, get the Nexus turret, they're on the Nexus.
Great game from SK Gaming, continuing their dominance. 17 kills, 1 death. An impressive performance once again, and you just have it to give it to these guys. They formed as a brand new team, effectively, at the start of the spring split, and my God, teams really have to respect them now.
You have to. During picks and bans, I felt that Nidalee was a risky pick. I thought it was you needed to be even or ahead in order for that pick to work. SK Gaming hardly flinched. I don't even think Gragas or Ziggs was a consideration for them. They executed perfectly. They didn't get caught out. They didn't fall prey to the wombo combo. And once they hit that power spike, they started landing spears and winning team fight after team fight.
Let's talk about some of the stats. You got a 5-0-6 Nidalee. You've got a 9-0-5 Candy Panda, a 2-0-9 for Svenskeren, and 0-0-13 Kale support.
The only death